Welcome to another video brought to you by Robolabs, FloatingCottonCandy.com, and CaramelsPopcornEquipment.com. In this video, I'm going to introduce and talk to you about the Robopop 75 hot air vortex popper. If you haven't already watched our other video on vortex hot air popping, that is a standalone video you should watch either now or after watching this video, because rather than talk about the Vortex patented technology and how the popper works in each and every video that uses that technology, it made more sense to make a standalone video on that topic, and then for each model that I make a separate video for, I can save that content, not have to repeat myself, and just talk about the specifics that are unique to that model. So with the Robopop 75, this is a single seed popper, and by that I mean it has one feeding bin. You can pop as many different types of seed as you want, butterfly, mushroom, large, small, doesn't matter, but you only have the one feeding bin, so you do have to empty it or finish your popping cycle before loading new seed. It has a simple user interface and up-down arrows for being able to control temperature and popping time and popping cycles and heat boost and all the variables that you would want to adjust to maximize your seed output and the tenderness of your corn. So it doesn't have a computerized display, but you still have full control over the entire popping process. The seed feeds into the heating chamber, the same as all the machines. It's in the back here. On the front, this is shielded. You can't see the sifter, but when I start it up and actually pop corn, I'll rotate the machine so you can see underneath here is the output for the popcorn and the actual sifter that keeps your chaff and your orphans and widows and drops your scrap that isn't consumable, and it drops it down into this bin in the bottom. You can hold hours and hours and hours worth of scrap in that tray. Rated at 75 pounds an hour. That's how the naming convention works at Robolabs. I do like to make it clear that it is a technical maximum throughput, much like what your top speed on your car might be. You're probably not going to get there because to do 75 pounds an hour, that would be what it's capable of, assuming that your corn is perfect quality, perfect storage, perfect temperature, humidity. There's all kinds of environmental variables and quality variables and storage variables with popcorn that are going to probably limit you to something more like 75% of the rated production. So while the machine is capable of it, your environment probably and the quality of your seed probably isn't going to allow for perfection. Having said that, even at 75%, this is probably the biggest bang for the buck in the Robolabs line. It's only about 3/4 of the price of the Robopop 60 and will out-pop it. It is a batch system rather than a continuous feeder, so when you hear it run, you'll hear it feed a batch in, pop it, purge it, clear it, feed another batch in. There's no human intervention necessary for that process, but you'll notice it sounds a little bit different than if you listen to the sounds on a Robopop 60 video. But even having said that, at the lower cost and the greater performance, it's probably one of the most popular machines for people that are caramelizing corn. If you don't need your corn to come out salted and seasoned like in a movie theater, this is the machine most people buy, because having a machine put out dry popcorn at theoretically up to 75 pounds an hour then allows you to post-process it, and whether that means you're going to make cheeses and Parmesan and garlics and dill and all those flavors, or put the corn into caramelizers and make all those flavors, the machine's capable of doing that, again, whether it's butterfly or mushroom kernels. So I will start the machine up and show you how it pops. Before I do that, I will probably zoom in on the control panel and let you see the types of adjustments you can make. This isn't a training video, but I want you to see it's not very difficult to work with. You just need a cheat sheet to understand what the screen's telling you. And the only other technical specification here is, well, there's two. One, this hopper holds about 50 pounds of seed, which is quite large. You can put almost basically a full bag, a 50-pound bag of seed in here, so you don't have to fill it very often. And two, the electrical. This is one of the poppers that you can get in either a three-phase power configuration or a single phase. So for people that are in retail locations that don't have industrial power, if you only have 220 to 240 in a single phase, you can run this machine. It will draw more amperage in a single phase configuration, but it's for many people that's would be a deal breaker otherwise. They don't have three-phase power available. You can, theoretically run this in your garage if you've got enough service from the street. So having said that, I'm going to stop the video. I'll zoom in on the control panel so you can get an idea of how the interface operates, and then I'll pop some corn so you can see what the throughput looks like. So as I said, the user interface is very simple with this machine, but you still have complex ability to set parameters. In most normal operation, all you're going to do is press the start button and then let the machine go. If you do nothing else, after a short period of time of doing self-diagnostics, it will enter into a heating cycle and will start warming up the popcorn. There's really nothing else you actually need to do. And that H followed by temperatures is telling you that it's now a heating mode. You've got another button that you can force it to go into cooling mode, and then that's going to turn the machine off. And the C's represent that it's in cooling mode. When it gets down to a safe temperature, it turns off. It's also an emergency stop button if the chamber is clogged or something's gone wrong. You can immediately kill the power without delay. Resetting that is simply a matter of twisting and pulling out. For the most part, that is all people are going to do is turn it on, use the up and down arrow to adjust the temperature. Again, mushroom corn typically pops at a higher temperature than butterfly, and your average operator, that's the extent of their interaction with this interface. However, if you get a new batch of seed and you find that it's not popping as well as your last batch of seed, because corn is an organic product, you know, every batch you get from your supplier may have different hull thickness, thinness, different amount of moisture, may have been stored differently. If you want to change any of the actual cooking parameters, all you need to do is press and hold the cooling button while you press the start, and then let go together, and you will see that it goes into a test mode. And the first thing it does is it tells me a code here, and LP, and you'll need the manual for this. LP stands for the total popping time per cycle. And as you push the buttons, you can use the up and down arrows to change this, or you can push the start button to move to the next interval. And the next interval tells you the feeding time. In other words, how long the feeder will work per batch for feeding seed. You've got speed, you've got duration, you've got the heating boost to keep the temperature up as new seed enters. You've got a sifter speed, you've got the frequency boost for the machines, the Vortex popping, hot air. You increase the frequency for purging the system and during the popping time to push the kernels out. And as you push all the way through this, you'll run into a final setting that says DEF, which is default settings. And so if you make changes to the machine, you decide you just want to go back to square, you can choose default settings. If you do nothing and push start again, any changes you've made have been saved. And again, all of those variables, you've got popping time, feeding speed, feeding rate, purge time, heating boost time, sifter speed, popping frequency boost, and purging boost. And those terms may not mean much to you if you're not in popcorn or have not used a hot air popper before, but rest assured what that means is that every batch of seed or any change that you wish to make, even though it doesn't have a fancy computerized display, you can make all the same changes that you would basically with a Robopop 60, and that's the computer displayed model. You just have to look at your little cheat sheet, which tells you which interval or which setting is which, and use your up and down arrows to change the actual values that you want. So very simple to program. Most owners will not program it. They will use it as it comes from the factory, but they're all very, very easy to change, a matter of seconds. Next up, I'll restart the system. I'll give it a warm up, add some seed, and let you see how it pops. All right, I've given the machine about 10 minutes to warm up, loaded 20 pounds of seed. It's just loaded its first batch of seed here and is getting ready to pop. The machines do come with these nice stainless steel carts that hold about, I'd say, 40 to 50 pound gallon bags. Don't have to use them, but they're pretty handy, and certainly for making this demonstration. This will be obviously quite loud because I'm near the output shaft. And what you see in the back is a square hole. That is where the Vortex air is pushing pop kernels just as soon as they pop right out of the heating chamber. And that's why the air popcorn is actually quite tender and fresh, because unlike old kinds of air popping systems, you don't have the kernels stuck in the hot air any longer than they need to be. As soon as it's popped, it's evacuated into the sifter mechanism, and you may not be able to see from the video, but the sifter is basically just drilled full of holes so that as it's rotating, it's sifting any scrap materials down into that tray I showed earlier. That sound you just heard is the next batch starting as the first batch is being evacuated. So through this first cycle, I'll try to speak up and make clear exactly what's happening. That is a batch operation system. Again, no human intervention is necessary. It just means that it's popping a batch, purging, and popping a new batch. So as the last of the first batch is being pushed out of the sifter, the next batch starts, the Vortex system runs. After it pops, you'll probably hear an increased airflow. That is the purge system, which pushes out any unpopped seeds, if there are any. I'm using a really good quality seed, so there actually aren't any. But if you have any seeds that didn't pop, if you have any chaff, any scrap, any dust from the corn, obviously all corn has that. Towards the end of the cycle, when you hear that air ramp up, that's the purge, and that extra airflow just basically cleans the chamber out. So the corn's been in there probably long enough, you can just start to hear the kernels pop, or I assume you can through my microphone. And now the corn rate you're probably seeing on screen, I'm not looking, but you're probably seeing it start to be expelled out. This is the next batch being popped, and then I'll be quiet and we'll listen for the purge sound. So that's about the end of the cycle. Or I should say the end of the popping cycle. And now as you hear the airflow ramp up, that's the purge. Any scrap, anything that didn't get popped gets pushed out of the heating chamber. And now you'll hear seed feed, and it's all going to start again. And it will do this 24 hours a day if you like. Now, the amount of corn that you see coming out, again, I just want to reiterate, you can increase the speed of the seed auger, the duration that the auger runs to get more seed into the chamber. You can increase and decrease the temperature. You can increase and decrease the purge and also the heat boost. So when we say it's a batch popper, you control all of these variables. So the output of this, I've never actually had anybody complain that it didn't pop corn fast enough. But if you want to push it and get higher and higher and closer to that 75 pound an hour magic number, the only thing that can go wrong is if you try to feed too much seed and pop it too fast, your heating chamber where it's actually being popped could clog. And at that point, you know you found the limit for your environment. And again, environment being temperature, humidity, and then the quality of seed you have. And you'd have to back it down from that so that so the machine can keep up with the quality of the corn that you're working with. And very few people, I think, actually try to push it to the limit because, as you can probably tell from the seed coming out, and I'll move the camera down so you can see what's filled in the bag just from these two batches, you get a lot of popcorn. Now, this might be hard to gather based on scale because you're not in the room, but this is like a 50-pound bag, and that turbine is about 18 inches across, so that's a lot of popcorn. And this bag, you'll have to change that every 15 to 20 minutes. It will pop a lot of popcorn. And so this is the Robopop 75. There goes another batch. Best bang for the buck in terms of popping a lot of perfect corn every time. All right, now that I've finished the popping cycle, I'm just going to recap a couple of things. I think you've got an idea of how fast this pops actual corn. I went through 20 pounds in I think it was about 20-25 minutes, so I was actually getting close to that 75 pounds an hour. Right now my temperature for the room is quite cool and the humidity is quite low, and I'm using really good seed. So when I turned the video off, I went ahead and finished popping that 20 pounds that I put in, and it took really not more than 20 minutes. The purpose of the machine is really flexible, anything from a popcorn shop owner, which would be obvious, to a hotel, resort, theme park, really any place you can think of where they would want to serve caramel or savory corns. The other thing I should note is that while I was popping into a bag or a bucket, you can park this thing over industrial conveyor belts and have multiple ones running in a row in a factory setting, and many people throughout the world do use this for factory level production because the machines are very reliable and require very little human input. As I probably mentioned in the other videos, One of the real advantages of hot air popping is there's no constantly refilling up every couple of minutes with ingredients and oil. There's essentially no cleanup. When the chamber cools down, I just take a little shop vac, not really a shop vac, a handheld vac, and vacuum out any dust and seeds that happen to be in there. And I mean, that's like literally a 10 or a 15-second process. The sifter drawer just lifts out, and that's it. There's nothing else to it. As long as you have a human to keep the 50 pounds of seed in there, filling it up every 20, 30, 40 minutes so it doesn't get too low. And if you're using carts or bins to wheel away your full cart and put a new one in, if it's over an assembly line, conveyor belt, then there's no human intervention at that point. So while most people aren't running multiple machines at maximum output, the reality is one human being could easily supervise 5, 6, conceivably 10 of these machines, because it's just a matter of occasionally adding seed, which of course could be automated with an overhead system, and changing the bags, which if it's over a conveyor, you don't need a human for that either. The only thing then becomes the scrap bin, and obviously you could put that over a conveyor to excavate that out as well. But even without any other automation added, one person could manage 10 of these machines, I think, without much difficulty, just adding seed and wheeling away bins every 20 minutes or so. Most owners are not using them that way. Most owners are using it, as I say, in the back of a popcorn shop, at a hotel or a resort, making caramel corn for guests, or at theme parks, things of that nature. But the machine just scales very, very well. Again, available either in sort of the North American 208 to 240 power range, single or triple phase, or you can get it in the European 400 volt. So incredibly flexible machine, 3/4 of the price of the Robopop 60, yet actually outperforms it in terms of throughput. And the trade-off, the reason it's able to do that is, again, it's a single feed hopper. It doesn't have a computer-controlled screen to make all kinds of adjustments, and it doesn't oil or season the corn on the way out, so you can't have a ready-to-eat movie theater product. So that's the one place that typically will almost always buy a Robopop 60 over the 75 would be a movie theater, or a place where people are expecting to consume it as soon as it comes out of the barrel. Other than that, wonderful, reliable machine. More information at carmelpopcornequipment.com if you're not viewing this here already. I do want to mention I have a showroom here in Michigan, about 45 minutes from 3 good-sized airports, Detroit Metro, of course, being the biggest, but also Lansing and Flint International airports. It's almost triangulated 45 minutes from either. I'm happy to have people come and actually experiment with the equipment, spend a whole day, make popcorn, make caramel corn, make cheese corn, whatever you want. Many people do actually purchase these machines based on phone conversations and video reviews, but for those that want hands-on experience, I offer that as well. So again, from Robolabs, floatingcottoncandy.com and carmelpopcornequipment.com, thanks for watching this video, and there will be more to come.